Hello and welcome to today's episode of Dream Business, Dream Life. Today I'm joined by Debbie Hancock. Debbie is a chartered management accountant and financial coach. She helps business owners to reframe their money stories to unlock their potential so that they can achieve their dream life. Hello, Debbie. It is great to have you here.
Hiya, Emma. Thanks for having me.
My absolute pleasure. Right, we're going to dive straight in as we always do. So, take us back to life pre-business. What was life like for you back then?
So, pre-business, I worked in corporate. I worked in corporate for, I think, about 11 years as a finance manager. So, ultimately, the finance person within a program. So, working with engineers, supply chain, commercial, etc., to cost up, forecast, and bid programs. I worked within defence. So one of my one of my things I always say to people is, "Oh, guess what? I've got my name engraved on the Queen Elizabeth aircraft carrier because I was part of the team who was on the build of that program. So I'd bring together all the costs from across the country every single month to build the mod, and check that budgets were in place, etc. So that's
Oh,
quite fun.
that's exciting. You really are famous. You really are.
Yeah, it's a shame that on the day that I was allowed to go on board and see my name, prior to that, my son had accidentally headbutt me in the mouth and knocked my front tooth out. So I'm a bit like, oh, the
You
picture's not
missed that
great.
bit. But what a great story to be able to share, isn't it? What a great story. So always been in finance then, there's always been money in there somewhere in terms of what you have been doing. What was the transition from corporate to business? What made you think, hey, I'm going to do this myself?
So when I returned from maternity leave and went part-time, everything had changed, all the management had changed, and it was clear they didn't really understand part-time and weren't really set up for part-time work. So there were redundancies happening, and I ended up going through one of the redundancies. And people said to me, "I'll start your own accountancy," and I was like, "No, I don't want to do that." So I found a job at the competitor 6 weeks later and worked for them for 18 months. But again, part time didn't really work. I was working till 9, 10 o'clock at night, every month end, every year end, etc. And so I decided that I would try and go it alone. And I'd done some tax in corporate, so I'd done VAT returns, I'd done Intrastat, which is where we moved equipment around the world. So I'd done things like that and tax returns, but with the help of KPMG and PwC and those kind of people. So I was like, oh no. So I went off and studied tax whilst working and volunteered for an accountancy practice so I could gain experience. Um, then left corporate, and my professional body hadn't even said I was allowed to do this yet. So I sort of left in a bit of a, oh dear, I hope this works out. And then that was in like the May, and then my son started school in the September. So that's kind of when I started. So September 19, offering self-assessments and tax returns. Never been on social media. Like I'd come off social media prior to that. So I didn't know how to use social media. I had no idea how to price accountancy services because obviously I worked with the MOD, so it's kind of controlled a bit more. Um, didn't understand the software, nothing. Um, got a marketing coach and started pushing forward. It was picking up, and then obviously March 2020 happened. So that was just great fun. Um, but yeah, I thought that accountant equals tax and people wouldn't understand what I did in terms of budgets, forecasts, um, profit reviews, etc. So I went down the tax route, which I don't regret because I learned a lot, and
Yeah.
that I can still now use. When I work with people as a finance director, I can bring up the tax information, but it's not really what I wanted to do. So I don't regret doing it, but I sort of wish I'd had the confidence in myself to push forward and be like, no, actually, this is what I do, and this is what my qualification is, and my experience is working in FTSE 100 companies. I can bring that process to small business. But I feel like, sometimes you're not ready and you have to go through that journey a bit more. And and you learn a lot through that journey.
Absolutely. I think we sometimes learn more from the things that we probably sit here and say, oh, perhaps shouldn't have done that, than if we'd just originally gone down the route that we could have gone down.
Yeah, and I think by me doing that, so me saying I'm going to do the tax, and then I was trying to speak to my clients, oh, you really need to do cash forecasts, especially when COVID hit. We really need to look at where the business is. I work with a lot of gyms, obviously they all closed. And I was trying to speak to them about doing stuff, and they weren't listening. And I was like, I don't understand. I'm the expert here, but you're not listening to what I'm telling you. And then that's how I got into looking at mindset, um, and going down the journey of coaching and learning about coaching. Because before self-development, I was a bit like, oh, it's all a bit fluffy, isn't it? Like, but I went on my own journey with money mindset through all the coaching practice I did. I was like, oh, that's really interesting. That's why I don't spend a lot of money, and that's why I use money as my security blanket, and that's why I feel funny about how much I'm charging. So actually, it was a real discovery for myself through that process. And then I'm now able to help my clients who wouldn't listen to me because I can ask the questions in a different, instead of being like, do this, do that. It's like, let's understand what's preventing them from doing this and doing that and get them on board rather than being a bit of a dictator.
Yeah. Money it's often considered quite taboo, isn't it? It's something that people just don't talk about. I don't know if that's a British thing or whether it's a worldwide thing, but it's something that we just find difficult, I think is the word to talk about, isn't it? And I think that's whether you are, struggling financially or making decent money. People have these things that sit on the shoulders, don't they, that tell them that you can't talk about that. What will people think if you talk about that? And I don't know why that is. I don't know why that is. I suppose it's mindset, isn't it?
It is, yeah, and it's you can get like the British are funny about talking about money, but you also get other cultural influences where they don't want to talk about money, or a certain gender has to earn the money, and etc. So you get, and religion impacts it. So you get all these different things that come into play, and people don't want to talk about it. And it's not necessarily they're from a poor background or a richer background, whatever. You get it in both camps, and there's assumptions that both camps make about each other, which then impacts both of them. So I've got clients who come from very wealthy backgrounds and clients that come from less wealthy backgrounds, and both of them have mindset issues around money and talking about money and what they feel about money. So it's not that there's one camp that, you look at people and go, oh, you've got loads of money, what's your problem? But actually they're there thinking it might be taken away from them, or people assume they're greedy, or people assume they've been given everything in life, and therefore it's almost like they've got to make life harder for themselves to
Yeah.
prove that they deserve the money they've given. And I feel like that's kind of where I was with my son. I was a bit like, I come from a working class background, grew up on a council estate, my parents still have low income jobs. And I was like, oh, but I can just buy my son a new bike, or I can just do this and that for him. But is he going to be spoiled? Oh no, like, is he not going to appreciate money? And then you're like, got all these demons in your head, all these things in your head going. And it's like, I can't deprive him just to teach him a lesson.
It's a difficult one, isn't it? A really difficult one to balance and to get right. And I think, we're work in progress, and I don't think we're ever perfect, are we, in terms of, the decisions that we make. We just have to take the ones, I suppose, that feel right for us. I know for me, money mindset played a huge part in terms of when I walked away from my other business. When I made that decision, it was the right thing for me to do. But I didn't make that decision for so long because I was frightened what other people would think. That
Mm.
suddenly, somebody who is surrounded by stuff, and that's all it was. It was just stuff that I was buying because I was able to, not because I wanted to. I think, well, what would other people think? I'd have people saying, oh, they must have gone bump. They must be really struggling financially. And I was frightened of what people would think of that. And that at the time, I didn't even know money mindset was a thing. I'd never heard of money mindset until I came into this online world, and people started talking about it. And I started thinking, that actually makes sense. All of that stuff that people are saying makes sense. But at the time, I didn't know what it was, but I was scared. I was really scared of what other people would think. And then the impact of that on me when I started to, I thought, right, I'm going to do something different. And this business was born. Then it was this real fear of earning money again. It's like, I'm going to do all of this stuff because I love doing it. I'm not going to charge anybody for any of it because then I'm going to get money and then I'm going to get unhappy again. And then I'm going to, start buying stuff again. And wow, it was such a crazy journey, such a crazy journey. And I think my biggest mistake back then, and if anybody can take anything from this, please do, was not to invest in somebody to help me with that mindset around money, because I didn't think it was I didn't even put the two together. I just thought it was me still healing from the business. Never really gave it any thought that the issue was money mindset. So yeah, definitely, definitely, if you haven't already, get to know your money story is my advice. And don't assume if you've had money, that means that money can't be the problem. It can be just as much as it can be for people who have had financial struggles. I assumed people with money mindset were people who hadn't had money and desperately wanted money. Didn't think it was people who'd had money. But it was. It was. It really was. And it's still a battle I fight now, to be fair. It's still a battle I fight now. So yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things that you never necessarily get over, if that's the right way to put it. It's like you up level and then you need to up level again and up level again to feeling comfortable. So now when I book things or pay for things, I'm like, oh, it's so nice not to have that should I, shouldn't I, shouldn't I? Like it's just I want it, so and I can afford it, so I'm gonna do it. Whereas previously I've been like, oh no, because I need to make sure that I've got enough money to protect me. And if the world falls in and this happens and that happens, I've got a safety net. And the fact is, like, I can't live life constantly fearing what may happen. I need to be sensible, which I am, but I also need to enjoy life now. And you can't let that fear just lock you into not spending, because I find when I spend, I do get more money in. It's like a cycle, isn't it? The energy of money flowing. And I'm looking at a picture of a waterfall over there, and what's my brain thinks. And so for some people, it's like they hold on to money. Some people will overspend money. Some people won't charge enough. Some people will never look at their numbers. I have people that they just won't even look at their bank account because it just fills them with dread. And I have clients, yeah, from poorer backgrounds, more wealthy backgrounds, and you get all sorts of things come up with them. And pricing is a big one, isn't it? I don't think we'll ever all settle on our prices and think, yes, that's 100% right. It's
Yeah,
always questioning it and
it
seeing how
is.
it feels.
It is. And I think if something isn't quite selling the way that you want to sell it, our first assumption is it has to be the price, which
Yeah,
a lot of the time it isn't the price. A lot of the time it's something else that sits in there, the messaging or the product itself. But the first thing we do is say, I'm going to reduce the price because that'll make it sell.
yeah.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't
Whereas
it, how we have these beliefs.
yes, and like some people will look at prices and it'd be like, oh, that's cheap, so it's clearly not very valuable. So actually, if you're selling something that is quite incredibly valuable at a low price, some people would just be like, no, it's clearly they're over exaggerating, it's not true. They either don't know what they're talking about or whatever. And so they'll go and pay someone else the money because they're charging a higher price. There's all this, you're thinking, you're not selling from your psychology, you're selling from someone else's money stories and what they believe about money. That's why there's brands out there, isn't there, that like Kellogg's and Heinz and North Face and all these brands that charge a premium based on the name ultimately.
Yeah. Exactly that, exactly that. And we are drawn to that, aren't we? We go and look for the Heinz tomato ketchup. We don't go and look for the alternative supermarket brand one because we're thinking we need Heinz tomato ketchup regardless of the price. But I think a lot of there's some great quotes, isn't there, that we got told probably as children, that our parents probably got told as children, you get what you pay for, money doesn't grow on trees. All of these sort of quotes that you don't think there's anything sort of wrong with them when you are saying them or when you're hearing them, but it's later in life that you can sort of sit back and think, well, do you know what? That actually will have ingrained in me that money doesn't grow on trees. Therefore, I need to be careful with my money. Therefore, I need to not be greedy and all of these things. So yeah, it's surprising, isn't it, how we can influence other people just by the things that we say.
Uh-huh. Yeah, definitely. And it all ingrains up to the age of 7. And I remember when I started doing all this, I think my son was about nearly 7, and I was like, oh no, what have I done? I've broken him. But I now try and think about what I'm saying to him and how I'm saying it. And we talk about all sorts of things. Obviously, being an accountant, we talk about tax and interest and inflation, and he's kind of not wanting to spend his money. It's like, little man, like, your money's there to spend. It's not just to save. So you want to do a bit of everything. So do a bit of saving and a bit of donating and a bit of spending. And like think about what do you want to buy? Because he wanted to buy a VR, but and we were going to let him, but it basically isn't very good for kids because it's too heavy. So we've
Right.
said he can't have it now, but he can look at what other things he wants to buy. But yeah, you do say these things, don't you? It's like, oh, stop wasting the water, it costs money, and blah, blah, like
Yeah. Switch the tap on in between brushing your teeth. All these things that I remember from
yeah,
my
there's
younger
plenty of
days.
water in the tap.
Yeah, funny. I've just been away, and whilst we were away, and it's these things would never have even entered my head previously. I've heard people say things and never would have thought about the repercussions of them. There was a family with two absolutely gorgeous little twin girls that were running about by the sea as they do. And every time this one little girl, she just wanted to head to the water. And every time she sort of headed towards the water, the parents would shout, "Shark!" And she'd turn and run back. So obviously what they've said to us, the shark's in the water, and it makes her stay away from the water. So obviously as parents, they just think it keeps her away from the water. She's safe, all of that. And there's me sat there thinking, but that poor girl now is going to be frightened of water.
Yeah,
But they're
yeah.
as parents, they're not bad parents. I'm not judging those
No,
parents at all. They're just thinking that's keeping her out of the water, so it's keeping her safe today. They're probably only about 2, so it's keeping her safe today. But I would never have even those sort of things would have just gone straight over my head until mindset became something that I understood and explored. And I know that has nothing to do with money, but it's the principle, isn't it? Is there that
it is, yeah.
we do things we think for the right reasons, but the impact it can have longer term.
Well,
Um,
that's it. It's not saying that anyone's parents are like bad parents, because you can
Not
have
at all.
siblings with the exact same upbringing, but it's the way they internalize what they've been told. And you can have two siblings, same upbringing, same sayings, with two completely different mindsets around money. So it's not the parents have done something wrong, because all they can do is parent from where they are. And like this, like we didn't know about this stuff how many few years ago. There's no way our parents did. And my granddad was a war baby, so rationing and all that stuff. So it's not surprising that he's got certain beliefs around money. And my dad was like, couldn't believe it when I walked away from my highly paid corporate job, final salary, pension, shares, sick pay, and everything to do what I'm doing now and take a massive risk. We'd tripled our mortgage. We'd literally just moved, tripled our mortgage. And then I've gone, okay, I'm going to leave my job now. He's
Midlife
like,
crisis incoming.
what are you doing? Yeah, 30, what are you doing? And it was during COVID, he was like, actually, I can see why you would do that. Because to me, yeah, I was paid very well. And I got up the corporate ladder very quickly. But I wasn't getting home till 10 o'clock at night quite a lot of the time, and missing a lot of what my son was doing. And he was starting school, and I didn't want him to constantly be in childcare. So I had to make a decision. But some people thought I was pretty crazy, because I was walking away from the security of a well-paid job that I'd established myself very well in. And you can understand why that is, because my parents are in these like lower income jobs, and to them money's hard to come by, and you need to work hard and you're paid by the hour. Why would you walk away from something that's paying you so much money? Doesn't make sense. Um, So I can see why they would think that because of
Yeah.
their upbringing.
Exactly that, exactly that. And I think this is a thing, isn't it? Sometimes, you touched on there that the career was giving you all of these, the financial stability, the sick pay, and all of that stuff, but it wasn't giving you the life that you wanted. And I
Hmm.
think that's the important thing sometimes, isn't it? That, it isn't all about having lots of money. It's about having the amount of money that you want and need to do the things that you want to do with your life. And I think that is a really brave decision that people make when they reach that point that they say, do you know what, this isn't quite working for me. And I know that it comes with huge risk, but actually this is something that I need to do and I need to follow. So I always massively take my hat off to people who take those brave decisions to say, I want to follow my path, because it is a scary one, isn't it? It is scary. And this self-employed world, this running your own business, it comes with challenges, doesn't it?
Definitely, definitely. I don't think I would be the person I am now if I hadn't left my corporate job and gone through the roller coaster of owning your own business. Like I remember, team meetings, and I was with the exec team, and my heart would be racing, thinking I need to comment now as the finance lead. My heart would be going. And now I will record videos and I'm talking on podcasts and I'm talking on stage. There's no way that I would have thought I'd be doing that 5 years ago. So it's massively changed me in terms of I've learned a lot about myself and what I want and what I'm actually capable of. Because I had the little comfort blanket of being in the same business for quite a few years and they promoted me up through the business. So people knew me and I got to know people and I knew what I was doing. It was safe. And then I was suddenly thrown into this world of I had to get onto social media, which I was just like, oh no, social media. I've got to post on this social media thing. And then 2020, it was like, now record videos. So, no. And then the first time I spoke on stage, I remember I was walking a lot and I was like, talk, because that was all that energy built up inside me. And the last time I spoke on stage, someone said to me, you come up to me afterwards, like, I saw your first talk a couple of years ago. You were good. Now you're a professional. And I was like, oh, that's so nice. Thank you. Like, I just wouldn't have done that 5 years ago. So it's pushed me to learn a lot about myself and to grow and actually build something where I can pick my son up from school and drop him off and go to coffee and cake days with him.
Perfect. My dream day. I'll
Yeah.
replace the coffee with a prosecco, but then it's my dream day. Then it's my dream day.
But
But that's
that's
what's
what,
important, isn't it?
yeah, and that's what I try to do with my clients. Like, I'm not one of those finance coaches that's going to come out with a money gun. And like when I had my photo shoot, my coach was like, "How are you going to show like money? Oh, Gucci handbags." And I was like, "That's not me. That's not what I'm trying to help my clients achieve." Yeah, I've got millionaire clients, but ultimately it's about helping people achieve what they want in life and working out how much money they need to do that and what the business can do to get them there. It's not about let's do 10, 20, 100K months. Great, but actually, if you're going to be in the business all the time, it's pointless. What do you need to live a good life? And actually, it's not as much as you probably think it is.
Yeah.
So I'm a coach. When I do money coaching, it's like, where do you want to get and what do you want to actually achieve in life? And so we look at things like values and goals rather than how can we get the absolute maximum out of this business and grow it and grow it and grow it. Yeah,
And
another
and
coach will help you.
Exactly. And you know me, and I'm exactly the same from a business perspective. I think it's what is your dream, isn't it? It's not about what, you see other people doing and assuming that is the only way to be inverted commas successful. Because it absolutely isn't it? I feel more successful now than I did back in, 2020, probably, yeah, it would have been 2020 when I last turned over the figures that I was turning over before. I feel far more successful now than I did back then, and all the stuff has gone. I haven't got I've still got occasional little bits that I've chose to keep, but I purposely got rid of all of the stuff that went with that business, and went with that lifestyle because I needed to and I wanted to, because I needed to go back to, um, what do I actually want versus what I've got. So yeah, I think it's yeah, I think it's important to do it your way and not to do the way that you assume is right. 10K months, what is that figure? Where does that come from?
It's no good if you've got 10K costs, is it? So
Exactly that, exactly that. So it's no good anyway if you're not going to enjoy it. You know, if you're going to have to work, 90 hours a week to get those 10K months, which, some people will be prepared to do purely so they can say that they're earning those, £100,000 a year figures.
yeah. And I
Crazy,
think
crazy.
previously I would have been like, kind of looked down on those people a bit, like in a judgmental way, I guess, like, oh, why are you doing that? But actually, when you go into the mindset and you learn about the psychology of people, you're like, oh, it makes sense. And like they're allowed to go and do what they like, obviously. But if they then come into me and they're not happy, that's when I'm like, well, why are you doing that then? But now I understand why they're doing that. So I can
Oh,
actually bring it together and not be judgmental, which is,
yeah.
I think, a far better way for me to approach it and for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. People do it for a reason. I did it for a reason. I earned the money for a reason. Other people will be doing exactly the same. We don't intentionally go out to make ourselves unhappy, do we? I don't think. But sadly, sometimes that's the way that life takes us. So it's amazing that we have people like you out there who can help them and take them on that journey. So what would you say, before we go on to the very end of this, what would you say is the scariest part of your journey? You've talked about lots of things that you've found sort of, difficult. What would you say was your scariest part?
Um, I think the scariest part was when COVID hit. That was definitely a down for me, because the gyms I was working with all closed. I didn't have many clients because obviously I hadn't long started. I got really ill from COVID, which really surprised me because I was so fit and healthy. But how can I not breathe? This is just ridiculous. And I was trying to work through, even though I was ill. I was trying to work. The screens were dizzy, and I was trying to work. And so I think COVID was the scariest part for me because I thought, oh my God, I left my job a year ago with secure pay, and now I've got not really got any money coming in. The world's closed down. Oh shit, what am I going to do? Like literally, am I going to have to go get a farming job? Like, oh my, like what can I do? My son's at home. My partner's a key worker. That was definitely pretty scary. And obviously I had all the mindset problems then as well, where I was seeing the negative in everything, and not seeing actually I just need to maybe chill for a few months and it'll be okay. So I had all my negative mindsets playing up then as well. And I mean, it was like 18 months later when I got into mindset. So yeah, that was definitely the scariest part because no one knew what was going on, and I was just trying to help everyone for free, even though I really wasn't very well. And yeah, that was pretty hard.
Yeah. But you got through it. You got through it. And I think that's the important thing, isn't it?
Yes.
So at the end of every episode, I ask my guests to share a top tip with us. So what would your top tip be?
From a money mindset perspective, it would be starting to understand your story. So there's loads of prompts out there. I do have a freebie, but there are loads of prompts out there. There's loads of videos out there. There's loads of books out there. There's loads of podcasts out there where you can just start to explore what your story is. And I know some people will think it's all a bit fluffy because I've had some of my clients think that. But when you start seeing those questions and allowing your brain to work through them, you strange things will come up, things that you never even realized you thought will start to come up. And once you're aware of your stories, it's going to help you so much more going forward. So the first stage is awareness and just what's your first memory of money? What what story do you have as a child? What sayings did your parents say? All these kind of things. And if you start to write them down and don't overthink the answer, like why would I think that? Just write down what you're thinking. It's really interesting what comes up. So that would be the thing. It's like you can write money is in the middle of the paper and just write all the words. And the last time I done that, it was actually quite sad. This woman wrote money is a weapon. And she was like, whoa. where did like, and when you listen to her story, it does make sense. But she said, I've never realized that's what I thought about money. And so things might come up that really surprise you, and then look at your bank account. Just look at your bank account. So many people don't do it. So many people don't want to do it. They like open it and close it really quickly. Actually, just open it and like spend 10 minutes looking at your bank account and what you've been spending and doing. That's it.
Amazing tips. And we'll make sure that we share your freebie in the show notes as well for people so they can go and do that. So finally, if our listeners want to come and learn more about you, where's the best place for them to connect with you?
So either LinkedIn or Facebook is probably the best places. That's where I mainly hang out nowadays. So on LinkedIn, it's Debbie Hancock ACMA, which is my qualification. And on Facebook, it's just Debbie Hancock.
Amazing. So thank you so much for joining me. It's been great chatting. And thank you to everybody else for listening. We will see you next time.